The bridge of the Federation patrol ship Harmony's Edge was quiet except for the soft humming of its organic systems. Captain Tae-ho stood near the main viewing screen, his forearms crossed behind his back as he watched the stars drift by. The Vextar captain had been patrolling these outer rim territories for 3 standard years now, and rarely did anything interesting happen. "Captain," came the voice of First Officer Subin from her station. The Lumian's crystalline body sparkled with soft blue light as data flowed through her transparent form. "We are detecting something unusual ahead." Tae-ho turned his compound eyes toward her. "What kind of unusual?" Subin's light flickered faster, showing her confusion. "There is a ship, sir, but it is not moving. No energy signatures, no life signs. It appears to be dead in space." The captain moved to his chair, settling his insect-like body into the specially designed seat. Around the bridge, his mixed crew of Federation species worked at their stations. The gaseous Netherian at the helm, Dongwu, floated in his containment suit. Science Officer Minho, another Vextar, clicked his mandibles as he studied his readings. "Show me," Tae-ho ordered. The main screen shifted to show a distant object against the star field. Even at this range, something felt wrong about it. The ship did not reflect light like normal vessels. Instead, it seemed to absorb it, creating a dark shadow against space. "Range?" Tae-ho asked. 15,000 units and closing, Subin replied. "The vessel is approximately 800 units in length, much larger than any Federation ship in this class." Minho looked up from his station. "Captain, the design is unlike anything in our databases. The material appears to be some form of metal alloy, but our scanners cannot identify its composition." Tae-ho studied the image. The ship was angular, with sharp edges and aggressive lines. It looked nothing like the smooth, flowing designs of Federation vessels. Where Federation ships were built for exploration and peaceful contact, this thing looked built for war. "Any identification markings?" the captain asked. "None that we can detect," Minho replied. "The surface is completely smooth in most areas, with what appear to be weapon ports and sensor arrays built into the hull." Communications Officer Bora, a young Lumian whose pink glow indicated nervousness, spoke up. "Sir, I am detecting some very faint power readings from within the vessel. It may not be completely dead." Tae-ho felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. In all his years of service, he had never encountered a ship design like this. The Federation had been exploring this galaxy for over 1,000 years and had made contact with dozens of species. All of them built ships for exploration, trade, or defense. This ship looked like it was built to attack. "Helm, slow to quarter speed," he ordered. "I want us to approach carefully." Dongwu's gaseous form swirled in his suit as he made the adjustments. "Quarter speed, Captain." As they moved closer, more details became visible. The ship had multiple rows of what could only be weapon batteries, large tubes that looked like they could fire projectiles, curved sections that might house energy weapons, and along the sides, rectangular bays that could launch smaller craft. "Captain," Subin said, her voice tight with worry, "the weapon arrays on that vessel, they are pointed in our direction." Tae-ho studied the image more carefully. She was right. Many of the ship's weapons were aimed toward their position, as if tracking their approach. But the vessel showed no signs of active targeting systems. "Could be automatic defensive positioning," Minho suggested. "Some species do build ships that track potential threats even when powered down." But Tae-ho was not convinced. Something about this ship felt alive despite the lack of energy readings, like a predator pretending to be dead until its prey came close enough. "Bora, try standard hailing frequencies," he ordered. The young Lumian's glow brightened as she worked at her station. "Broadcasting on all Federation channels, Captain." She paused, listening. No response. Try mathematical sequences. Prime numbers, universal constants. Bora worked for several minutes, sending various signals toward the dark ship. Still, nothing came back. "Sir," Minho said, "I am reading some very strange energy patterns from within the vessel. The power source appears to be completely contained, not radiating any excess energy like our fusion cores do. It is almost as if they have perfect energy efficiency." Tae-ho moved to look over his science officer's shoulder at the readings. The numbers made no sense. The ship was clearly powered, but producing no waste heat, no energy bleed, no electromagnetic signature that normal ships created. "That should be impossible," Subin said, looking at the same data. "Perhaps their technology is just very advanced," Dongwu suggested from his helm station. But Tae-ho was beginning to suspect something else. This was not just advanced technology. This was technology designed for stealth, for surprise, for war. The perfect containment of energy signatures would make the ship nearly impossible to detect until it was too late. "Captain," Bora called out suddenly, "I am getting something." Everyone turned to look at her. The Lumian's glow had shifted to a bright yellow, indicating surprise. "What is it?" Tae-ho asked. "A signal, sir. Very faint. It is coming from inside the ship." The bridge fell silent except for the humming of their systems. Then, through the speakers, came a sound none of them had ever heard before. It was rhythmic, steady, like the beating of a heart. But underneath it was something else. A low, deep sound that seemed to vibrate through their ship's hull. "Is that breathing?" Subin whispered. The sound continued for several long seconds, then stopped. The silence that followed felt heavy and threatening. Min-ho checked his scanners again. The power levels inside the ship just increased. Something is waking up in there. Tae-ho felt his blood run cold. Whatever was inside that ship had been sleeping, and their approach had awakened it. He thought about ordering his ship to retreat, but he was a Federation officer. First contact was his duty, no matter how dangerous it might be. "All stations, prepare for possible contact," he ordered. "Subin, ready defensive systems, but do not target the vessel unless I give the order." "Understood, Captain." As they watched, small lights began to flicker along the dark ship's hull, not the warm, organic glow of Federation technology, but harsh, white points of light that seemed cold and mechanical. The vessel was definitely waking up. And Tae-ho had the terrible feeling that once it was fully awake, nothing would ever be the same again. The lights on the alien vessel continued to flicker on, one by one, like a great beast slowly opening its eyes. Captain Tae-ho watched from his command chair as more sections of the dark ship began to glow with that cold, white light. "Science. Officer Min-ho, I need a full analysis of that vessel," Tae-ho ordered. "Materials, construction methods, anything you can determine." Min-ho's mandibles clicked rapidly as he worked at his station. His compound eyes reflected the data flowing across his screens. "Captain, this is unlike anything in our records. The hull appears to be constructed from multiple layers of unknown metal alloys. The density readings suggest armor plating at least 3 times thicker than our heaviest warships." First Officer Subin moved closer to study the readings. Crystalline form pulsed with concern as she processed the information. 3 times thicker? Captain, our warships are already considered heavily armored by Federation standards. There is more, Minho continued. The construction method appears to be something called welding, rather than the grown or crystallized hulls we are familiar with. Each piece has been joined to the next with some form of metallic bonding. The entire ship is essentially one solid piece of metal. Tejo tried to imagine the technology needed to build such a vessel. Federation ships were grown in space using organic processes, or crystallized using Lumion techniques, or shaped from living metal by the Netherians. But this ship had been assembled piece by piece, like building a puzzle made of metal. Communications. Officer Bora, the captain said. Any progress on establishing contact? The young Lumion's pink glow had deepened to red with frustration. I have tried every Federation language, sir. Mathematical sequences, musical patterns, even basic pictographs. The vessel is definitely receiving our transmissions. But there has been no response. As if responding to her words, the ship's communication arrays suddenly activated. Dozens of dish-shaped devices and rod-like antennas extended from hidden compartments along the hull. The array was massive, far larger than anything needed for normal space communication. Captain, Bora called out excitedly, I am receiving something. The bridge fell silent. Through the speakers came a series of sounds, unlike anything any of them had heard. It was clearly a voice, but speaking in patterns and tones that hurt to listen to. The voice was deep, harsh, and seemed to contain emotions that the Federation species could not identify. Can you translate it? Tejo asked. I'm trying, sir. The language structure is completely unknown, but wait. Bora worked at her station, running the transmission through the ship's linguistic computers. There is something else coming through. A new signal began to overlay the voice transmission. This one was clearly data, flowing in organized patterns, that suggested intelligence and purpose. It appears to be some form of mathematical and linguistic primer, Bora explained. Basic counting systems, simple mathematical operations, and what looked like language building blocks. Minho looked up from his science station. They are trying to teach us their language. The realization sent a chill through the bridge crew. Whoever was aboard that vessel was not just intelligent, but was actively trying to communicate. This was not a derelict ship or an abandoned vessel. This was first contact. How long will it take to establish basic communication? Tejo asked. Bora's glow flickered as she calculated. With the ship's computers working on the language patterns, perhaps several hours for basic concepts, maybe a day for more complex communication. As they waited, more systems came online aboard the alien ship. Massive sensor arrays deployed from the hull, scanning the Federation vessel with energies that made their own sensors scream warnings. The scans were not gentle exploratory beams like Federation ships used. These were aggressive, penetrating scans that seemed designed to learn everything about their ship's construction, weapons, and crew. Captain, Subin reported with alarm. Those scans are mapping our entire ship. They are analyzing our hull composition, internal structure, power systems, even the biological signatures of our crew. Can we block them? I am trying. But their scanning power is enormous. Our defensive screens are having little effect. Engineer Kyung-Soo, a Netherian who floated in his containment suit near the rear of the bridge, spoke up for the first time. Captain, the power requirements for scans of this intensity would exceed our ship's total energy output. How are they generating so much power? That was the question that had been bothering Tae-ho since they first detected the vessel. The energy readings they were seeing should be impossible for a ship that size. Even the largest Federation vessels, the great exploration ships of the Lumion Collective, did not generate power on this scale. Minho, can you determine their power source? The science officer worked at his station for several minutes before, looking up with confusion. Sir, I cannot locate their primary power source. The energy appears to be generated throughout the ship from multiple sources, but the readings make no sense according to known physics. What do you mean? They appear to be using some form of controlled matter conversion, sir. Not fusion like our ships, not the crystallized energy systems of the Lumions, but actual matter-to-energy conversion on a massive scale. The efficiency would have to be nearly perfect. The implications of this technology hit everyone on the bridge at the same time. Matter-to-energy conversion had been theoretical for centuries. The Federation's best scientists had proven it was possible but impractical due to the enormous engineering challenges involved. Sir, Bo-Ra interrupted, I am beginning to make progress with their language. The basic concepts are becoming clear. What have you learned? Bo-Ra's glow shifted to the yellow of concentration as she processed the information. They call themselves, the closest translation would be, humans. Their ship is named something like Indomitable or Unconquerable. And, Captain, they have been watching us. Watching us? The data they sent include star charts, sir. Our patrol routes, our ship designs, even details about Federation military organization. They have been studying us for some time. The revelation struck the bridge crew like a physical blow. This ship had been observing Federation space, learning about their technology and military capabilities, all while remaining completely undetected. How long? Tae-ho asked quietly. Bo-Ra worked at her station, translating more of the data stream. According to their records, sir, several months, maybe longer. Tae-ho felt his exoskeleton crawl with fear. An unknown species had been spying on the Federation for months, learning their weaknesses, studying their defenses. And judging by the technology they had seen so far, these humans were far more advanced than any Federation species. Captain, Subin said quietly, what do we do? Before Tae-ho could answer, new signals began coming from the alien ship. Bo-Ra translated quickly, her glow brightening with excitement and fear. Sir, they are requesting permission to establish visual communication. They want to show us who they are. Tae-ho looked around his bridge at his crew. Every one of them looked back at him with trust and fear in equal measure. They were about to see the face of an alien species that had been watching them from the shadows, learning their secrets. Grant their request, he said finally. It is time we met our watchers. The human ship began to turn. At first, the movement was barely noticeable, just a slight shift in the angle of the hull against the star field. But as the massive vessel continued to rotate, the Federation crew realized what was happening. Captain, First Officer Subin said, her crystalline form flickering with alarm. The ship is bringing its main weapons to bear on our position. Tae-ho watched in growing horror as the alien vessel slowly rotated, revealing row after row of weapon systems. What had looked threatening from the side was absolutely terrifying from the front. Massive circular openings that could only be weapon barrels, each one large enough to swallow their entire ship. Energy projection systems that hummed with barely contained power. And at the very front of the ship a collection of devices that hurt to look at directly. Weapons count? Tae-ho asked. trying to keep his voice steady. Science Officer Minho worked frantically at his station, his mandibles clicking rapidly. I count at least 40 major weapon systems, sir. But there are smaller systems I cannot identify. The total could be over 100. 100! Engineer Kyung-soo gasped from his containment suit. Our ship only has 6 weapon systems. The human vessel completed its rotation and stopped. All of its weapons now pointed directly at the Harmony's edge. But what frightened Tae-ho most was not the number of weapons, but their design. Federation weapons were elegant, efficient, designed to disable rather than destroy. These weapons looked brutal, designed for only one purpose: complete destruction. Energy readings? The captain asked. Rising steadily, Minho reported. The power flowing to their weapon systems alone exceeds our ship's total power output by a factor of 10. Communications Officer Bo-Ra suddenly straightened at her station. Captain, I am receiving more signals from them. Their linguistic computer has been working to decode our language as well. I think they are ready to communicate. Put it on speakers. The bridge filled with the sound of that harsh, alien voice. But now, mixed with the strange tones and rhythms, were words they could understand. Federation vessel, Harmony's Edge. This is Commander Jiwoo of the Terran Warship, Indomitable. The voice paused between words as if searching for the right translations. We request visual communication. Tae-ho looked around at his crew. They all stared back at him, waiting for his decision. The ship pointing enough weapons at them to destroy a small fleet was asking for a face-to-face meeting. Grant the request, he said finally. Bo-Ra worked at her communications station, establishing the visual link. The main screen flickered, then cleared to show the interior of the alien ship. The bridge that appeared before them was nothing like any Federation vessel they had ever seen. Where Federation bridges were organic curves and flowing designs, this was all sharp angles and hard surfaces. Everything was made of metal and composite materials, with no sign of the living systems that Federation ships used. But it was the figure standing in the center of the bridge that made the entire Federation. Crew freeze in shock. The human was bipedal, like several Federation species, but there the similarities ended. Its skin was smooth and pale, covering a frame that looked both fragile and dangerous. It wore what appeared to be a uniform of dark fabric, cut in sharp, military lines. But it was the face that was most disturbing, 2 forward-facing eyes like a predator, a small mouth with what looked like cutting teeth, and an expression that the Federation crew could not read but somehow knew was dangerous. I am Commander Jiwoo, the human said, the translation now flowing more smoothly. I represent the Terran Colonial Navy of the Human Federation. Tae-ho found his voice with effort. I am Captain Tae-ho of the Federation ship Harmony's Edge. We did not know of your species' existence. The human's mouth moved in what might have been a smile, but looked more like a threat display. We know. We have been studying your Federation for some time. Your patrol patterns, your ship designs, your military capabilities. The human paused. Your weaknesses. The word weaknesses hung in the air like a physical threat. Subin moved, closer to her captain, her crystalline form pulsing with fear. Why have you been studying us? Tae-ho asked. Commander Jiwoo turned to look at something off-screen, then back to the camera. Your Federation is engaged in several conflicts. The border disputes with the hegemony, the trade wars with the consortium, the territorial conflicts in the Outer Rim. These conflicts have been ongoing for decades. Yes, Tejo admitted, but they are relatively small conflicts. Few casualties, mostly economic disputes. The human's expression changed, becoming something that made Tejo's exoskeleton crawl. From our perspective, Captain, any conflict that lasts decades is not small. It is inefficient. Inefficient. Conflicts should be resolved quickly and permanently. Your Federation's approach to warfare is inadequate. Engineer Kyung-Soo's gaseous form swirled in agitation. What do you mean, inadequate? Commander Jiwoo turned to look directly at him. Your weapons are designed to disable, not destroy. Your tactics focus on defense rather than offense. Your military doctrine emphasizes minimal casualties over decisive victory. The human paused. This is why your conflicts drag on for years. We believe in preserving life, Subin said, her voice trembling but determined. Warfare should be a last resort, and when necessary, should minimize harm to all parties. The human's mouth moved in that threatening smile again. An admirable philosophy, but not an effective one. On the screen behind Commander Jiwoo, they could see other humans moving about the bridge. All of them wore the same dark uniforms, all moved with the same predatory efficiency, and all of them seemed to be working at stations that looked designed for one purpose: warfare. Your ship, Minho said suddenly. It is not an exploration vessel, is it? No, Commander Jiwoo replied. The Indomitable is a heavy cruiser of the Terran Colonial Navy. It is designed for deep space patrol and conflict resolution. Conflict resolution? Tejo asked. We end conflicts, Captain. Quickly and permanently. The human turned to one of his crew members and spoke in their harsh language. The crew member responded, and Commander Jiwoo turned back to the screen. Captain Tejo, we have been monitoring your current conflicts with great interest. We have identified the primary aggressors, mapped their supply lines, and calculated the resources required to end these conflicts. What do you mean by end? Tejo asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. Commander Jiwoo's expression became even more predatory. Complete and decisive victory for the Federation, Captain. Your enemies eliminated as a threat, their military capabilities destroyed, their leadership removed. The Federation bridge fell silent, except for the humming of their systems. What the human was describing was not warfare as the Federation understood it. It was something far more terrible. How many ships would such an operation require? Subin asked quietly. Commander Jiwoo looked at her for a long moment before answering. 1. The word one echoed through the bridge of the Harmony's edge like a death sentence. Captain Tejo stared at the human commander on the screen, trying to process what he had just heard. One ship? He asked. You believe one ship could end conflicts that have lasted for decades? Commander Jiwoo nodded, his predator eyes never leaving Tejo's compound gaze. The Indomitable is not our largest warship, Captain. It is classified as a heavy cruiser. We have much larger vessels. First Officer Subin's crystalline form flickered with disbelief. Larger than this? Our dreadnoughts are twice this size. Our battleships are 4 times larger. The human paused, letting this information sink in. But size is not the most important factor. It is design philosophy. Science Officer Minho leaned forward at his station. What do you mean by design philosophy? Commander Jiwoo turned to gesture at his own bridge. Look around you, Captain. What do you see on your bridge? Taeho looked around the familiar space. The organic curves of the Vextar biotechnology, the flowing crystal displays of Lumion systems, the soft containment fields of Netherian equipment. Everything was designed for comfort, efficiency, and harmony. I see a peaceful bridge designed for exploration and diplomacy, Taeho said. Exactly, the human replied. Now look at our bridge. The screen showed more of the human vessel's command. Center. Every surface was hard metal or composite. Every station was designed for speed and efficiency in crisis situations. There were no comfortable seats, no decorative elements, no concessions to comfort or beauty. It was a workspace designed for one purpose: conducting war. Your bridge is beautiful, Commander Jiwoo continued. Ours is functional. Your ship is designed to explore and make contact. Ours is designed to kill. The blunt statement made several of the Federation crew members visibly recoil. Communications Officer Bo-Ra's pink glow darkened to deep red. All of your technology? Engineer Kyung-soo asked from his containment suit. Everything is designed for warfare? Commander Jiwoo considered this question. Not everything. We have civilian ships, research vessels, cargo haulers, but our military vessels, yes. Every system, every component, every design choice is made with combat effectiveness as the primary concern. That seems... Subin started, then stopped, searching for words. That seems like a very harsh way to live. The human's expression softened slightly, becoming almost sad. Perhaps it is, but it is necessary. Why necessary? Taeho asked. Commander Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment, looking off-screen as if consulting with his crew. When he turned back, his expression was serious. Because of where we come from, Captain. Our home world, Earth, is what your scientists would classify as a Class 12 death world. Minho's mandibles clicked in shock. Class 12? That's impossible. No intelligent life could evolve on a Class 12 world. And yet here we are, the human replied. Our world has an unstable climate, frequent natural disasters, and predators that make your worst nightmares seem gentle. Every day of our evolution was a fight for survival against an environment that was actively trying to kill us. The Federation crew exchanged glances. The most dangerous worlds any of them had encountered were Class 6 or 7. A Class 12 world would have multiple environmental hazards, unstable weather patterns, and life forms adapted for extreme aggression and survival. But you survived, Bo-Ra said quietly. We did more than survive, Commander Jiwoo replied. We adapted. We learned to work together against common threats. We developed technology not for comfort, but for survival. And most importantly, we learned that sometimes the only way to ensure peace is to be so dangerous that no one dares to threaten it. You became warriors, Taeho said. We became the ultimate warriors, the human corrected. Every human child learns military tactics along with mathematics. Every civilian understands basic combat principles. Our entire civilization is built around the concept of being ready for war. Engineer Kyung-soo's form swirled nervously in his suit. But surely once you reached space, once you were safe from your world's dangers, you could have changed. Commander. Jiwoo looked at him with what might have been pity. Engineer, we discovered that space is far more dangerous than our home world ever was. Hostile environments, resource conflicts, and eventually, he gestured toward the Federation crew. Other species. We are not hostile, Subin protested. No, you are not. The human agreed. But others are. We have been monitoring your conflicts, Captain. The hegemony attacks your border colonies. The consortium raids your trade routes. Pirate fleets prey on your civilian shipping. Commander, Ji-Woo leaned forward. You respond with diplomacy, economic sanctions, and limited defensive actions. They respond by becoming bolder. Tae-ho felt a chill run through his exoskeleton because he knew the human was right. The Federation's peaceful approach to conflict resolution had not been working. The border conflicts had been escalating for years. What do you propose? He asked. Demonstrate that attacking Federation assets has consequences, Commander Ji-Woo replied. Immediate, overwhelming, and permanent consequences. You mean destroy them, Minho said, if necessary. But preferably make it clear that destruction is the certain result of continuing their aggression. Most intelligent species can learn from a sufficiently convincing demonstration. The human commander turned to one of his crew members and spoke in their harsh language. The crew member nodded and began working at his station. Commander Ji-Woo turned back to the screen. Captain Tae-ho, we have been authorized to provide you with a demonstration of human military capability. Consider it our introduction to galactic politics. Alarms began sounding on the Federation bridge. Minho looked up from his science station in panic. Captain, the human ship's power output just increased by 500%. On the main screen, they could see the human bridge becoming a hive of activity. Crew members moved with practiced efficiency to their stations. Status displays lit up with information that flowed too fast to follow. And Commander Ji-Woo stood, calmly in the center of it all, watching his crew prepare for something that made Tae-ho's blood run cold. Demonstration? Subin asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Commander Ji-Woo smiled that predatory smile again. You have been trying to end your current conflicts for decades using diplomacy and limited force. We will show you how to end them in minutes using overwhelming force. Commander, please, Tae-ho said desperately. We cannot authorize... You do not need to authorize anything, Captain, the human interrupted. We are not asking for permission. We are showing you what humanity brings to this galaxy. The human ship's weapon systems began to glow with building energy. And Captain Tae-ho realized that he was about to witness something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The space around the human warship began to change. What had been empty void was now filled with energy patterns that made the Federation sensors scream warnings. Captain Tae-ho watched in growing horror as the Indomitable prepared for what Commander Ji-Woo called a demonstration. Captain, Science Officer Minho reported, his voice shaking, their weapon systems are drawing power levels that should be impossible. The energy output is reading as equivalent to a small star. That cannot be correct, First Officer Subin said, her crystalline form pulsing with disbelief. I have checked the readings 3 times, Minho replied. Their primary weapons are each drawing more power than our entire ship generates. On the main screen, Commander Ji-Woo stood calmly on his bridge while his crew worked around him. The human ship had become a maze of activity, with crew members moving between stations with military precision. Status displays showed information in their harsh alien language, but the colors and patterns suggested massive systems coming online. Commander, Tae-ho said through the communication link, what exactly are you planning to demonstrate? The human turned to look directly at him. Your current conflict with the hegemony, Captain. Your border worlds have been under attack for 2 years. Diplomatic solutions have failed. Economic sanctions have been ignored. Limited military responses have been ineffective. Commander Ji-Woo paused. We will show you how to end this conflict. But the hegemony territories are light years away. Communications Officer Bo-Ra protested. Commander Jiwoo's mouth moved in that threatening smile. Distance is not a problem for human weapons, Communications Officer. Engineer Kyung-soo's gaseous form swirled frantically in his containment suit. What kind of weapons can strike across interstellar distances? The kind that end conflicts permanently, the human replied. On the Federation bridge, alarms continued to sound as their sensors detected the massive energy buildup aboard the human ship. Min-ho worked frantically at his station, trying to understand what he was seeing. Captain, they are opening some kind of launch bay, but the energy reading suggests they are not launching conventional weapons. Through the view screen, they could see sections of the human ship's hull sliding apart, revealing dark openings that seemed to absorb light. From these openings, objects began to emerge that hurt to look at directly. What are those? Subin asked. Commander Jiwoo heard her question. Relativistic kill vehicles, he replied casually. Solid projectiles accelerated to 95% of light speed. Each one carries the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. The Federation crew stared in shock. They had heard theories about relativistic weapons, but no Federation species had ever built them. The energy requirements were considered impossible, and the destructive potential was beyond anything their peaceful civilizations could imagine. How many are you launching? Tae-ho asked, dreading the answer. 12. Commander Jiwoo replied. 1 for each hegemony military installation in your border regions. 12, Bo-Ra gasped. But there are civilian populations near those installations. The human's expression became cold. The projectiles are programmed with precision targeting. Civilian casualties will be minimal. However, the hegemony military presence in your border regions will cease to exist in approximately 47 minutes. Min-ho looked up from his sensors in disbelief. 47 minutes? But the nearest hegemony installation is over 6 light hours away. At relativistic speeds, distance becomes irrelevant, Commander Jiwoo explained. The projectiles will arrive almost simultaneously at their targets despite being launched at different times to compensate for varying distances. The human ship continued launching the deadly projectiles, each one accelerating away from the ship at impossible speeds. The Federation crew watched in horrified fascination as weapons that could destroy entire fleets disappeared into the darkness between stars. This is massacre, Subin whispered. Commander Jiwoo heard her. No, First Officer. This is war. Your Federation has been fighting a limited conflict with restricted rules of engagement. The hegemony has been taking advantage of your restraint to continue their aggression. The human's voice became harder. We do not fight limited conflicts. We fight to win, completely and permanently. But the cost, Tae-ho protested. The destruction, the loss of life. The cost of ending this conflict today, Commander Jiwoo replied, is far less than the cost of allowing it to continue for years. How many Federation civilians have died in hegemony raids? How many more will die if this conflict drags on for another decade? The terrible logic of it hit Tae-ho like a physical blow. The humans were right. The Federation's approach to warfare was designed to minimize immediate casualties, but it prolonged conflicts and ultimately led to more deaths over time. What happens after your demonstration? Engineer Kyung-soo asked. Commander Jiwoo consulted with one of his crew members, then turned back to the screen. Our diplomatic corps will contact the hegemony leadership. We will offer them a choice. immediate cessation of all hostile actions against the Federation, or complete destruction of their military capabilities. And if they refuse, the humans' expression became something that made the entire Federation crew step back from their screens. They will not refuse. No intelligent species continues to fight after witnessing the true capabilities of human warfare. As they watched, the last of the projectiles disappeared into space, carrying destruction toward targets they could barely imagine. The human ship's weapon systems powered down, but somehow the vessel seemed even more threatening now that they had seen what it could do. "Captain Tae-ho," Commander Ji-woo said, "in 43 minutes, your border conflicts will be over. The hegemony will withdraw from all disputed territories. Your people will be safe." "At what cost?" Tae-ho asked quietly. "At the cost of demonstrating that the Federation now has allies who understand the true nature of warfare," the human replied. "This galaxy has been locked in endless small conflicts because no one has been willing to pay the price for peace. We are willing to pay that price." The human commander looked off-screen as one of his crew members reported something. When he turned back, his expression was satisfied. "Impact in 38 minutes, Captain. I suggest you prepare to receive surrender transmissions from the hegemony. They will want to discuss terms very quickly once they understand what has happened to their military installations." The communication link closed, leaving the Federation crew staring at a blank screen. Around them, their ship's systems hummed peacefully, a stark contrast to the terrifying efficiency they had just witnessed. "What have we done?" Subin whispered. Tae-ho looked around at his crew, all of them staring at him with fear and confusion in their eyes. They had made first contact with a species that would change everything, and there was no going back. 38 minutes had never felt so long. The bridge of the Harmony's edge was silent except for the soft humming of their systems and the quiet clicking of Science Officer Minho's mandibles as he monitored their sensors. Everyone was waiting for something that would change the galaxy forever. Captain Tae-ho stood near the main viewing screen, staring out at the human warship. The Indomitable floated in space like a dark predator, its weapons now powered down, but somehow more threatening than ever. They had just witnessed this vessel launch weapons across interstellar distances with casual efficiency. "Any word from Federation Command?" Tae-ho asked. Communications Officer Bora shook her head, her pink glow dim with worry. "I sent our initial report 20 minutes ago. Even at faster-than-light communication speeds, it will be hours before we receive a response." "What did you tell them?" "The truth, Captain. First contact with an unknown species possessing military technology far beyond our capabilities. And," she paused, "that they just launched weapons at hegemony installations." First Officer Subin moved closer to her captain. "Sir, what happens when those projectiles impact? What do we do if the humans have actually destroyed those installations?" Tae-ho had been asking himself the same question. The Federation had strict rules about warfare, about proportional response, about protecting civilian populations. What the humans had just done violated every principle of civilized conflict resolution. But he also knew that those hegemony installations had been the source of raids that had killed thousands of Federation citizens over the past 2 years. Diplomatic protests had been ignored. Economic sanctions had been laughed at. Limited military responses had only encouraged bolder attacks. "Captain," Minho called out suddenly, "I am detecting faster-than-light communication signals from the direction of the hegemony territories. Multiple sources all broadcasting on emergency frequencies. Can you decode them?" "Working on it. Sir. Minho's compound eyes reflected the data flowing across his screens. The signals are hegemony military codes, but they are scrambled and overlapping. It appears to be panic communications. Before anyone could respond, the communication system activated. Commander Jiwoo's face appeared on the screen, his expression calm and professional. Captain Tae-ho, the human said, "We are receiving surrender transmissions from the Hegemony High Command. They wish to negotiate immediate ceasefire terms." "Already?" Subin gasped. "But the weapons have not even reached their targets yet." "Commander." Jiwoo's mouth moved in that predatory smile. "The Hegemony has very sophisticated early warning systems, First Officer. They detected our projectiles approximately 10 minutes ago and immediately calculated their trajectories, impact times, and destructive potential." He paused. "They are intelligent enough to recognize when they have been outmatched." Engineer. Kyung-soo's gaseous form swirled nervously in his containment suit. "What are their terms?" "Complete withdrawal from all disputed territories within 72 hours. Reparations for damages to Federation colonies, and a formal non-aggression pact with both the Federation and humanity." The human looked pleased. Very reasonable terms, considering. "And if they had not surrendered?" Tae-ho asked. Commander Jiwoo's expression became cold. "Then in 3 minutes, 12 hegemony military installations would have ceased to exist, along with their garrison fleets and support infrastructure. The hegemony would have lost approximately 60% of their military capability in a single strike." The Federation crew stared at the screen in shocked silence. What the humans considered a demonstration would have been the most devastating military action in galactic history. "Impact in 2 minutes, 30 seconds, Commander Jiwoo announced. "The Hegemony has requested that we abort the strike as a show of good faith for the negotiations." "Can you stop them?" Bo-Ra asked. "Of course," the human replied. "Each projectile contains a small antimatter charge that can be remotely detonated, causing them to self-destruct harmlessly in space." He paused. "However, we will only abort the strike after the Hegemony begins withdrawing their forces from Federation territory." "They are withdrawing now," Minho reported, monitoring the communication channels. "I am detecting massive fleet movements throughout the disputed sectors. Hegemony forces are pulling back to their own territories." Commander Jiwoo consulted with his crew, then turned back to the screen. "Confirmed. Hegemony withdrawal has begun. We are aborting the strike." On his tactical display, Tae-ho watched as the human weapons detonated themselves in the empty space between stars. 12 points of light flared briefly and then faded, taking with them the most destructive weapons ever deployed in galactic warfare. "The conflict is over," Commander Jiwoo announced. "The Hegemony has agreed to all terms. Your border worlds are secure." The bridge of the Harmony's edge erupted in quiet celebration. Subin's crystalline form brightened with relief, Bo-Ra's glow shifted to happy yellow, and even Kyung-soo's nervous swirling calmed to gentle circulation. But Tae-ho felt only a growing dread. Yes, the immediate conflict was over. But what did it mean for the galaxy that a single human ship had ended in minutes what the entire Federation fleet had been unable to resolve in years? "Commander," he said, "what happens now? What are humanity's intentions in this galaxy?" The human's expression became serious. "That depends, Captain, on what the other species in this galaxy choose to do." He gestured toward his bridge, where crew members were monitoring dozens of communication channels. "We have been observing not just your conflicts, but all of the ongoing wars and disputes throughout this region of space. All of them? The consortium trade wars, the hive expansion conflicts, the synthetic uprising in the core worlds, the pirate confederations in the outer rim. Commander Ji Woo's eyes met Taiho's. From our perspective, this galaxy is trapped in a cycle of endless small wars because no one has the capability or will to enforce peace. And you have that capability? We have that capability, the human confirmed. And more importantly, we have the will to use it. Minho looked up from his station. How many ships does humanity have? Commander Ji Woo considered the question. In this region of space, currently 12 vessels of various classes, but our shipyards can produce more as needed. 12 ships to police an entire galaxy? Subin asked. 12 ships like the Indomitable, First Officer, each one capable of ending conflicts that have lasted for decades. The human paused. But we prefer not to fight at all. It is much more efficient if intelligent species simply choose to stop fighting each other. The implication was clear. Humanity was offering the galaxy a choice: peace through negotiation or peace through overwhelming force. Either way, the endless conflicts would end. What do you require from the Federation? Taiho asked. Commander Ji Woo smiled, and for the first time, it did not look entirely predatory. Nothing, Captain. Your Federation already seeks peaceful solutions to conflicts. You simply lack the means to enforce them. We are offering to provide those means. In exchange for what? Friendship, the human said simply. An alliance between species that value peace and cooperation. As the communication ended, Taiho looked around at his crew. They had witnessed the end of one era and the beginning of another. The galaxy would never be the same. And somehow, despite everything he had seen, Taiho found himself hoping that might be a good thing. Hours had passed since the human demonstration, but the impact continued to spread across the galaxy like ripples in a pond. Captain Taiho stood on the bridge of the Harmony's edge, reading report after report of conflicts suddenly ending throughout Federation space. "Sir," Communications Officer Bo-Ra announced, her glow bright with excitement, "I am receiving surrender transmissions from the Pirate Confederacy in the Outer Rim. They are requesting immediate peace negotiations with the Federation." "The pirates?" First Officer Subin asked in disbelief. "They have been raiding our trade routes for 5 years. They never negotiate." Science Officer Minho looked up from his station. "Captain, I am also detecting massive fleet movements in consortium space. Their battle groups are withdrawing from all disputed territories." Engineer Kyung-Soo's form swirled thoughtfully in his containment suit. "Word travels fast in this galaxy. Everyone must have heard about what happened to the hegemony." Taiho nodded grimly. Within hours of the hegemony's surrender, news of humanity's intervention had spread to every major government and military organization in the region. The reaction had been swift and predictable. Anyone currently engaged in aggressive actions against their neighbors was suddenly very interested in peaceful solutions. The main screen activated, showing Commander Ji Woo on the bridge of the Indomitable. The human looked pleased but not surprised by the rapid changes occurring throughout the galaxy. "Captain Taiho," the human said, "we have received communication requests from 17 different governments and organizations. They all wish to discuss diplomatic relations with humanity." 17? Subin gasped. "Word spreads quickly when the balance of power shifts," Commander Ji Woo explained. "Most intelligent species can recognize when their previous strategies are no longer viable." "What are you telling them?" Taiho asked. The human commander's expression became serious. "The same thing we told the hegemony. Cease all aggressive actions. Withdraw to recognized borders, and engage in good faith negotiations to resolve disputes. Those who comply will find humanity to be a valuable ally. Those who do not, he did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone had seen what human weapons could do. But, Commander, Bora said hesitantly, some of these conflicts have been going on for centuries. The territorial disputes, the resource wars, the ethnic conflicts. How can they be resolved so quickly? Commander Ji Woo turned to consult with one of his crew members, then looked back at the screen. Communications officer, most conflicts continue, not because they cannot be resolved, but because the cost of continuing them has been less than the cost of ending them. We have changed that calculation. You have made the cost of conflict too high, Taeho realized. Exactly, the human confirmed. When the alternative to negotiation is complete military destruction, most species suddenly become very interested in compromise. Minho clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. But what happens when you leave? When your ships are no longer here to enforce the peace? Commander Jiwoo smiled, and this time it looked almost warm. Who says we are leaving, Science Officer? The word sent a chill through the Federation bridge crew. Taeho felt his exoskeleton tighten with sudden fear. What do you mean? He asked carefully. Humanity has decided to establish a permanent presence in this galaxy, Commander Ji-woo announced. We are constructing a naval base in the neutral zone between Federation and hegemony space. From there, we will monitor the peace and respond to any violations. Subin's crystalline form flickered with alarm. A permanent base? With how many ships? Initially, 50 vessels of various classes. Enough to respond to any conceivable threat to galactic stability. The human paused. Of course, if the peace holds, most of those ships will remain in port. We prefer not to deploy our fleets unless necessary. Engineer Kyung-soo's gaseous form swirled frantically. 50 ships? Captain, if each one is as powerful as the Indomitable, then humanity will have effective control over this entire region of the galaxy. Taeho finished quietly. Commander Jiwoo heard the fear in his voice. Captain, we have no desire to control other species or interfere in their internal affairs. We simply wish to prevent the kind of destructive conflicts that have plagued this galaxy for so long. And if we disagree with your definition of destructive conflicts? Subin asked. The human's expression became cold again. First Officer, we have been monitoring your galaxy for months. We have seen the refugee camps, the destroyed colonies, the civilian casualties from these small conflicts. We have calculated the economic cost, the loss of life, the technological stagnation caused by constant warfare. He leaned forward. From our perspective, any conflict that causes unnecessary suffering is destructive. But who decides what is necessary? Taeho asked. We do, Commander Jiwoo replied simply. We have the weapons, the technology, and the will to enforce our decisions. That makes us the arbiters of peace in this galaxy. The brutal honesty of the statement hit the Federation crew like a physical blow. This was not diplomacy or negotiation. This was a powerful species announcing their intention to impose their will on everyone else, regardless of what those other species might want. And if we resist? Bora asked quietly. Commander Jiwoo looked at her with what might have been pity. Communications officer, your entire Federation fleet could not damage a single human warship. Resistance would be brief and decisive. You would destroy the Federation? Minho asked in horror. We would destroy the Federation's ability to make war, the human corrected. Your governments would remain intact, your species would be unharmed, Your colonies would be protected, but your military fleets would cease to exist. The human commander turned to look at something off-screen, then back to the camera. However, we do not expect resistance from the Federation. You are already a peaceful species. Our presence will only make you safer. As if to prove his point, Bo-Ra's station lit up with incoming messages. Sir, I am receiving formal requests from 12 Federation colonies requesting protection under human naval coverage. They want human ships stationed in their systems. You, see? Commander Jiwoo said. Your own people recognize the benefits of human protection. Tae-ho felt a wave of despair wash over him. The humans were right, of course. Federation colonies that had been under constant threat from raiders and hostile neighbors would welcome the protection of ships like the Indomitable. The peace and security that humanity offered would be irresistible to most Federation citizens. But at what cost? Commander, he said finally, what happens to our independence? Our right to make our own decisions? Commander Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment before answering. Captain, you will have more independence under human protection than you have ever had. No more border disputes draining your resources. No more trade routes threatened by pirates. No more colonies living in fear of attack. The human's expression softened slightly. You will be free to explore, to grow, to develop your civilization without the constant threat of war. Under human supervision, Subin said bitterly. Under human protection, Commander Jiwoo corrected. There is a difference. The communication link closed, leaving the Federation crew alone with the reality of their new situation. They had made first contact with a species that would reshape the galaxy, whether other species wanted it or not. Captain, Kyung-soo asked quietly, what do we do? Tae-ho looked around at his crew, all of them waiting for him to have answers he did not possess. The galaxy had changed forever, and there was no going back. We adapt, he said finally, and we hope the humans are as benevolent as they claim to be. 3 days had passed since the human demonstration, and the galaxy had become a very different place. Captain Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Harmony's edge, staring at reports that would have been impossible to believe just a week ago. Sir, Communications Officer Bo-Ra announced, her glow steady with amazement. The last of the consortium battle fleets has withdrawn from Federation space. The trade war is officially over. The hive expansion has also stopped, Science Officer Min-ho added. Their colonization fleets are returning to their home territories. And the synthetic rebellion in the core worlds? First Officer Subin asked. Ceasefire declared this morning, Engineer Kyung-soo reported from his containment suit. Both sides are requesting human mediation for peace talks. Tae-ho nodded slowly. Every major conflict in this region of the galaxy had ended in less than 72 hours. Wars that had raged for years or even decades were simply over. The speed of it was terrifying. The main screen activated, showing Commander Jiwoo on the human warship. But the Indomitable was no longer alone. Through the view screen, Tae-ho could see at least a dozen other human vessels, all sharing the same dark predatory design. Captain Tae-ho, the human commander said, I wanted to update you on our progress in establishing regional stability. How many ships do you have now? Subin asked, her crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. 37 vessels have arrived in the past 2 days, Commander Jiwoo replied. Construction crews are also en route to begin building our permanent base. Tae-ho felt his exoskeleton crawl. 37 ships like the Indomitable represented more military power than the entire Federation had ever possessed. And more were coming. "Commander," he said carefully, "there are some concerns about the speed of these changes. Many species are unsettled by how quickly their conflicts have ended." Commander Jiwoo's expression remained neutral. "Unsettled by peace, Captain." "Unsettled by the method," Taeho corrected. "Some governments are claiming they were coerced into surrender." "They were," the human replied without hesitation. "Coercion is often necessary to end conflicts that diplomacy cannot resolve." The casual admission made the Federation crew exchange worried glances. Minho clicked his mandibles nervously. "But is coercion the foundation for lasting peace?" The audio science officer asked. Commander Jiwoo considered this question. "Science officer, we have studied thousands of conflicts throughout human history. Peace based on mutual respect and understanding is ideal, but rare. Peace based on the certainty of consequences for aggression is much more reliable." "You rule through fear," Bo-Ra said quietly. The human's expression hardened. "We rule through strength, communications officer. Fear is simply a natural response to overwhelming power." He paused. "But consider the alternative. How many Federation citizens died in hegemony raids over the past 2 years? How many consortium civilians were killed in trade disputes? How many colonies were destroyed in the territorial wars?" Taeho knew the numbers. Thousands dead, entire worlds devastated, millions of lives disrupted by constant conflict. The human was right that ending these wars would save lives, but the method still troubled him. "What happens to species that refuse to accept human authority?" Engineer Kyung-soo asked. Commander Jiwoo turned to consult with his crew, then looked back at the screen. "That situation has not yet arisen. Every intelligent species we have contacted has chosen to cooperate once they understand the consequences of refusing. And if one did refuse," the human's eyes became cold, "then they would serve as an example to others. One decisive demonstration is usually sufficient to convince an entire region that cooperation is preferable to resistance." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The humans were not just offering protection, they were demanding submission. And they had the power to enforce that demand against anyone foolish enough to resist. "Captain," Subin said suddenly, looking at her tactical displays, "I am detecting movement in the human fleet. Several ships are breaking formation. On the main screen, they could see human vessels moving away from the main group, their dark hulls disappearing into hyperspace one by one." "Where are they going?" Minho asked. Commander Jiwoo smiled that predatory smile. "The Corvan Empire has been conducting raids against neutral shipping in the Beta Quadrant. We have given them 48 hours to cease these activities and return to their borders. And if they refuse, they will not refuse," the human said with absolute certainty. "The Empire's intelligence services have undoubtedly informed their leadership about what happened to the hegemony. They will make the rational choice." As if summoned by their conversation, Bo-Ra's communication station lit up with an incoming message. She listened for a moment, then looked up with wide eyes. "Sir, I am receiving a transmission from the Corvan Empire. They are requesting immediate peace negotiations and offering to pay reparations for their raids." Commander Jiwoo nodded with satisfaction. As expected, intelligence travels faster than warships. Taeho stared at the human commander, feeling a growing sense of unreality. Entire civilizations were surrendering based on reports of what humanity could do, without ever seeing human weapons fired in anger. The mere threat of human intervention was enough to end conflicts across the galaxy. "Commander," he said finally, "what you have accomplished in 3 days is remarkable. But what happens next? What is humanity's long-term plan for this galaxy?" Commander Ji-Woo's expression became thoughtful. "Our plan is simple, Captain. Maintain the peace, protect innocent civilians, and allow civilized species to develop without the constant threat of war." He paused. "We believe this galaxy has enormous potential once it is no longer wasting resources on destructive conflicts. And humanity's role in this peaceful galaxy? We will be the guardians, Captain. The species that ensures the peace is maintained." The human looked directly at Tae-Ho. "Someone must have the power and will to prevent conflicts from starting. We have chosen to accept that responsibility." The communication link closed, leaving the Federation crew alone with their thoughts. Around them, their ship hummed peacefully, no longer on patrol for hostile vessels because there were no longer any hostile vessels in Federation space. "Is this what we wanted?" Subin asked quietly. "Peace at any cost?" Tae-Ho looked out at the human fleet, dark shapes against the stars that had changed everything. "I do not know," he admitted, "but I know what we had before was not working." Minho looked up from his station. "Captain, I am receiving new patrol orders from Federation. Command, we are to report to Human Naval Station Alpha for coordination meetings." "Human Naval Station Alpha?" "Their new base, sir. It is operational as of this morning." Tae-Ho felt a chill run through his entire body. In 3 days, humanity had ended. Multiple interstellar conflicts, established a permanent military presence, and was now coordinating with Federation forces. The speed of the changes was beyond anything he had imagined possible. "Set course for the human station," he ordered. "It seems we have new allies to meet." As the Harmony's edge turned toward human space, Tae-Ho took one last look at the stars. The galaxy looked the same, but everything had changed. Somewhere in the darkness between those stars, an entire species of apex predators had been watching and waiting. Now they had decided to step out of the shadows and reshape the galaxy according to their vision of peace. Whether that was salvation or conquest, only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the age of small conflicts and limited wars was over. Humanity had seen to that, and Captain Tae-Ho could only hope that his species would find a place in the new order that was being born among the stars.